My boss smirked. You'll be back. A year later, I stood in that courtroom, replaying those exact words, counting each heartbeat as the files I submitted made the entire corporation tremble. That night, I closed the banking tab showing zero debt balance, opened a tab for plane tickets, and texted him just 2 words. Never again. The look on Warren Kincaid's face when the judge read the verdict, worth every sleepless night I'd spent building the case that would destroy him. My name is Marin Blake, and I grew up knowing exactly what a disconnect notice looked like. Pink slip tucked behind the screen door of our duplex in Raventon, Colorado. While Mom worked her 3rd shift at the distribution center, 31 years later, I found myself on the other side of those calls, headset clamped to my skull in the fluorescent tomb of Quellridge Recovery Solutions, reading scripts designed to make people cry. The morning everything changed. Warren Kincaid stood at the head of the glass conference room, his Patagonia vest pristine over a button-down that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Behind him, the Denver skyline stretched gray against November clouds. The Slack notification on my laptop pinged. Another KPI update. Always another KPI update. Blake, he said, not looking up from his iPad. Your conversion rate dropped 2% last week. I shifted in the Herman Miller chair that made my back ache. Around the table, Delia North from Legal tapped her Mont Blanc against her notepad. Gabe Rusk from HR scrolled through his phone, probably updating the termination templates he kept ready like loaded weapons. The new script, I said, keeping my voice steady. The one about reporting to credit bureaus within 24 hours. It's not just aggressive, it's borderline illegal. These people already paid. Their debts are time-barred. Warren's laugh came out like ice cracking. These people. He finally looked at me, blue eyes sharp as surgical instruments. These people signed contracts. We're optimizing cash flow recovery for our clients. We're threatening grandmothers about debts from 2015. The room went silent except for the white noise machine in the corner. Warren's idea to prevent eavesdropping. Delia's pen stopped moving. Gabe looked up from his screen. If you can't handle the heat, Warren said, leaning back, fingers steepled. Maybe this isn't the right fit. Though honestly, Blake, where else would you go? Still carrying that Northwestern debt, aren't you? Plus the credit cards? He smiled, teeth white as bathroom tile. Face it, you need this job, you'll play ball, or you'll starve, and even if you leave. He paused, savoring the moment like aged whiskey. You'll be back. Something snapped inside me, not dramatic, not loud, just the clean break of my last fuck to give. I closed my laptop, the soft click echoing in the glass box of a room. My hands weren't even shaking yet. I quit. Gabe's phone clattered onto the table. Delia's pen rolled across her legal pad, leaving a thin blue line like a heart monitor flatlining. Warren's smile widened. You're emotional. Take the day. Cool off. We'll revisit your KPIs. Monday. I stood, tucked my laptop under my arm. My badge, the one that tracked every bathroom break, every minute away from my desk, sat heavy in my pocket. I'm not emotional. I'm done. HR can mail my last check. Blake. His voice hardened, the fake casual warmth evaporating. You walk out that door, you're throwing away a $60K base plus commission in this economy with your debt load? That's financial suicide. I turned at the door, hand on the brushed steel handle. Through the glass, I could see the cubicle farm. Dozens of heads bent over computers, voices murmuring into headsets. I understand times are tough, but this debt is valid. We can offer a payment plan. This will affect your credit score. You know what's funny, Warren? I said. I've spent 2 years learning exactly how your industry works. Every legal loophole, every regulatory requirement, every place you cut corners to squeeze an extra dollar from someone who's already drowning. His smile faltered for just a second, a micro-expression I'd learned to read during collections calls. The moment when a debtor realizes you've got them cornered. Except this time, he didn't know he was the one in the trap. You'll be back, he repeated, but it sounded more like a question now. I pulled open the door, the seal breaking with a soft gasp. We'll see about that. The walk to my desk took forever and no time at all. I grabbed my coffee mug, the one Mom gave me when I graduated. First generation graduate in fading gold letters, and my phone charger. Left the stress ball from the last mandatory wellness seminar. Left the stack of scripts labeled November Urgency Enhancers. Left the photo of me at orientation, bright-eyed and grateful for the opportunity. The elevator ride down 23 floors gave me time to realize what I'd done. My hands started shaking then. Adrenaline finally catching up to decision. But when I stepped into the Denver afternoon, snow just starting to fall. I felt something I hadn't experienced in 2 years. Clean. The unemployment website crashed 3 times before I could file my claim. Sitting on Ivy's couch in Harbor Junction, I refreshed the page while her cat, Mortgage, sprawled across my laptop keyboard. Outside, Denver's housing crisis played out in real time. Another luxury apartments coming soon sign going up where the Guatemalan bakery used to be. You need to eat, Ivy said, dropping a bag of Taco Bell on the coffee table. She was still in her scrubs from a 12-hour ER shift, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Can't fight the system on an empty stomach. Can't afford to eat. I showed her my Wells Fargo app, $247.32 remaining. Rent was due in 6 days. Former rent, since my landlord had already texted about the 60-day notice required. Professional font, zero sympathy. The first rejection email came that night. Thank you for your interest in the customer success role. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. 14 more followed within the week. The job market was a joke everyone was tired of hearing. Thousands of layoffs in tech, hiring freezes everywhere else, and every posting requiring 5 years' experience for entry-level pay. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. But I recognized the area code, collections. The irony wasn't lost on me. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to someone reading from a script I probably wrote. This is an attempt to collect a debt. Please call back at your earliest convenience. I started a spreadsheet, color-coded by urgency. Red for immediate, phone bill, minimum credit card payments. Yellow for negotiable, student loans could be deferred again. Green for what I could maybe ignore until I found work. The total made my chest tight. $67,849. Northwestern's gift that kept on taking. You could do DoorDash, Ivy suggested, heating up leftover hospital cafeteria soup. Or that Amazon warehouse is always hiring. Background check, I reminded her. They'll see I worked at Quellridge. No one hires debt collectors. We're pariahs. But it was worse than that. Opening my old work files, the ones I'd automatically backed up to my personal cloud, a habit from college, I saw patterns I'd been too busy to notice before. Names repeating across different portfolios. Dates that didn't match. Debts marked settled in one system. Outstanding in another. I pulled up the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act on my phone, cross-referencing with my notes. The November scripts Warren had pushed weren't just aggressive, they were explicitly illegal. Threatening legal action without intent to sue, calling before 8 a.m. and after over 9 p.m. Implying arrest was possible for unpaid medical debt. My Gmail dinged. Your payment of $45 has been processed. Remaining balance, $3,847.29. Thank you for choosing Chase. $45, the minimum payment that covered exactly zero principal. I'd be paying that card until I died. That night, I couldn't sleep, scrolling through RE Poverty Finance at 3 a.m. I found a thread. Quellridge called about a debt from 2008. Is this legal? Username after username shared horror stories. Elderly parents harassed, wages garnished for debts they'd already paid. One comment stopped me cold. They bought my debt for $50 and sued me for $5,000, lost by default because I couldn't afford a lawyer. I started taking screenshots. The next morning, another text from my landlord. Showing apartment Thursday, 2:44 p.m. Please ensure unit is presentable. Ivy found me crying over instant ramen. Mortgage purring against my shaking hands. Hey, she said, sitting down, still in her work scrubs. You're not alone, okay? We'll figure this out. Warren was right, I said. I'll have to go back. Beg for my job. He knew I couldn't survive out here. She grabbed my shoulders, gentle but firm, her ER nurse grip. Marin Blake, you are not going back to that toxic waste dump. We're going to make a plan. The plan started simple. Track every expense, cancel subscriptions, sell what I could. My business clothes went to Poshmark. The KitchenAid mixer from Better Times found a buyer on Facebook Marketplace. I downloaded apps that promised pennies for surveys, signed up for focus groups that paid in Amazon gift cards. But the real plan formed late at night, staring at those screenshots. Every illegal script, every predatory practice. Every time Warren had said, it's just business, while destroying someone's life for a debt that was already paid, already expired, already sold 6 times over. I opened a new document. Quellridge Recovery Solutions, a pattern of violations. My phone buzzed. Warren's personal cell. Offer stands, 70K base. You know where to find me. I deleted it and kept typing. The law library at the Denver Public Library became my office. Free Wi-Fi, heat in December, and most importantly, access to LexisNexis through their computers. I arrived at opening, left at closing, surviving on vending machine coffee and granola bars from Dollar Tree. My notebook filled with citations. 15 U.C. per Euro 1690 Ts. False representations. Per Brazil 1692 F. Unfair practices. Colorado Revised Statutes. 5 were 16-101 through 5-9-16-137. Each violation carried penalties up to $1,000 per incident. Quellridge made hundreds of calls daily. The ethical line haunted me at night. Everything I documented came from my personal notes, emails I'd sent to my own Gmail for reference, meeting invites that still lived in my calendar. No stolen files, no breach of confidentiality, just my own memories, legally protected. You sure about this? Ivy asked, watching me organize folders labeled by date. They have corporate lawyers. You have Reddit legal advice. I have the truth, I said, then laughed at how naive it sounded. And I'm about to have real lawyers. River and Stone LLP occupied the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. The elevator smelled like burnt coffee and defeat. But Nora Velasquez's office told a different story. Walls covered in victory headlines, settlements against payday lenders, cease and desist orders that actually stuck. Whistleblowing, she said, reading my documentation, is perfectly legal when done correctly. You're not violating any NDA by reporting illegal activities to authorities. She turned another page, eyebrows rising. This script here, they actually told collectors to say this? Every morning, Warren called it urgency enhancement. I called it lying to desperate people. She pulled out a legal pad, her handwriting precise as surgery. We need contemporaneous records, dates, times, who said what, any witnesses. 60 collectors heard the same training, but they're all still employed there. They won't talk. They might if CFPB comes knocking. She slid a business card across the desk. Theo March, investigative reporter at Metro Ledger, he's been sniffing around debt collection practices. Your story could be the match that lights the fire. I met Theo at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, the kind where laptops outnumbered conversations. He looked like every journalist in movies, rumpled Oxford, reporter's notebook. Eyes that had seen too much corporate bullshit to be surprised anymore. No names of current employees, I said. And verify everything independently. I'm not looking to destroy the workers, just the system. He recorded our conversation on 3 devices, paranoid about losing the story. When I showed him the script comparisons, what was legal versus what Quellridge demanded, he actually whistled. You know what this is? He asked. This is a pattern. I've got sources at 6 other agencies reporting the same tactics, but you're the first with documentation. That night, I filed my CFPB complaint, 20 pages of detailed violations, attached evidence, timeline of escalation. My finger hovered over submit for a full minute. Once this went through, there was no going back. No returning to Quelridge with my tail between my legs. No pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. Click. The Colorado Attorney General's office was next. Their online form crashed twice, government websites running on hopes and prayers, but the third attempt went through. Case number 2024 AG 19847. I started a spreadsheet. Debt Liberation Network. Found forums where Quelridge victims gathered, sharing stories, posted anonymously. If you received calls about time-barred debt, document everything. Changes are coming. Within hours, dozens of responses. Within days, hundreds. My phone rang. Unknown number. But I recognized Warren's assistant's voice. Ms. Blake, Mr. Kincaid would like to schedule a meeting to discuss your recent activities. My recent activities are unemployment and ramen noodles. Sharon. Tell Warren I'm busy being broke. He mentioned something about a generous consulting contract. 6 figures. All you'd need to do is provide input on compliance improvements. 6 figures. My credit card balance flashed in my mind. The student loan payments resuming in January. The humiliation of moving back to mom's couch at 31. Sharon, I said, voice steady as my shaking hands weren't. Tell Warren I don't consult for criminals. The line went dead. That evening, Ivy found me surrounded by printed statutes, color-coded tabs marking relevant sections. You look manic, she said, concerned. I'm building something, I replied, showing her the connection map I'd drawn. Quelridge to collection agencies to law firms to debt buyers. A spider web of financial predation. Every arrow is a violation. Every connection is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And you're doing this why? Revenge? I thought about it, really considered the question. Because Warren was right about one thing. I do know this industry. I know exactly how it works, where it's weak, and how to burn it down legally. My laptop pinged. Email from Nora. CFPB requesting additional information. They're taking this seriously. Prepare for war. War! Against a company with millions in revenue and lawyers on retainer. With $247 in my checking account and rage as my only currency, I opened a new document. How to Destroy Your Former Employer Legally, a guide. Step 1 was already complete. The Metro Ledger article dropped at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. Theo's headline was pure poetry. Debt in the Details, How Quelridge Recovery Solutions Profits from Expired Obligations. My phone started buzzing before I'd finished my first cup of instant coffee. Have you seen this? Ivy held up her phone, eyes wide. It's trending on Denver Reddit. I pulled up the article. Theo had been surgical, every accusation backed by documents. Every violation cited with legal precision. The script comparisons I'd provided were presented in a damning side-by-side graphic. Legal requirement versus Quelridge reality. The comments section was already at 300 and climbing. By noon, Quelridge had issued a response. We take compliance seriously and are reviewing our practices to ensure the highest standards of customer service. Corporate speak for our lawyers are having a panic attack. My old work Slack, which I'd forgotten to leave, exploded with notifications before IT finally revoked my access. But not before I saw Delia North's message to all staff. Do not speak to media. All inquiries go through legal. Violation of this policy will result in immediate termination. The freeze was on. That afternoon, I held my first Breathing Through Debt workshop on Zoom. 17 attendees, each paying $10. Not much, but enough for groceries. I taught them what I knew. How to request debt verification. How to identify time-barred debt. The magic words that make collectors stop calling. They told me I'd be arrested, one participant said, voice shaking. For a medical bill from my son's emergency surgery. That's illegal, I said, pulling up the statute. Document everything. Record calls if you're in a one-party consent state. Colorado's one party. You don't need their permission. After the workshop, I posted a template script on my new website, debtdefensekit.com, built with a free WordPress theme and Fury. Know your rights, what collectors can't say. Within hours, hundreds of downloads. My phone rang. Blocked number. You're playing with fire. Warren's voice, no longer pretending to be friendly. That article has cost us 3 clients already. Good, I said, putting him on speaker while I screenshot the call log. Maybe they realized associating with predators is bad for business. You signed an NDA. Blake. My lawyers are reviewing options. Your lawyers should review the whistleblower protection statutes. Title 5 of the U.S. Code, Section 2302. I can send you the link if you need help finding it. Silence. Then, you think you're clever, but you're still broke, still unemployed, and still nobody. When this little tantrum ends, you'll come crawling back. Warren, I said, calm as a frozen lake. I'm documenting this call. Contacting me directly could be construed as intimidation of a whistleblower. Also, fun fact, I never signed an NDA. Check your records. Gabe from HR never followed up after my orientation. The line went dead. That evening, a strange car sat outside Ivy's apartment. Black sedan, tinted windows, running engine. I took photos, noted the license plate, texted everything to Nora. Probably nothing, Nora replied. But document everything. If it's intimidation, that's another violation. The car left after an hour, but I stopped sleeping well. 3 days later, Theo published his follow-up. The Quellridge Files, Former Employees Break Silence. He'd found 4 others willing to talk anonymously. Their stories matched mine. Impossible quotas, illegal scripts, threats of termination for refusing to violate regulations. Quellridge's stock price, publicly traded under QRG, dropped 12%. My website traffic exploded. I added a forum where people could share their experiences. The stories poured in. Grandmothers harassed, veterans threatened. Cancer patients told their chemo bills would land them in jail. Each story another piece of evidence. You need to monetize this better, Ivy said, watching me respond to the 50th email asking for help. You're giving away everything for free. These people have nothing, I replied. They're me 6 weeks ago. But she was right. My checking account hit $43. I'd sold everything worth selling. Mom had offered to send money, but she was already working doubles to cover her own bills. Then Nora called. River and Stone wants to file a class action. We need a lead plaintiff, someone clean, sympathetic, documented harm. Know anyone? Rosa Martinez, I said immediately. 67, retired teacher, harassed for her late husband's debt that was discharged in bankruptcy. She's documented everything, dates, times, caller IDs. Perfect. And Marin? CFPB wants to interview you. Official deposition. This is moving from complaint to investigation. The black sedan returned that night. This time, I walked outside, phone recording. Can I help you? I called out. The car peeled away, tires squealing, my email dinged. Anonymous sender. You should have taken the money. This gets worse before it gets better. I forwarded it to Nora, then opened my spreadsheet of Quellridge violations. 243 documented infractions and counting. Each one a potential federal fine. Each fine up to $43,150 under the CFPB's adjusted penalties. Do the math. Warren, I thought. Do the math and realize what's coming. My phone buzzed. Mom. Saw the news. Proud of you. Baby. Dad would be too. I sat in Ivy's bathroom, door locked, and cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I washed my face, went back to my laptop, and kept building the case that would destroy them. The federal courthouse in downtown Denver smelled like old paper and justice deferred. I sat in the gallery as River and Stone filed the class action, watching Nora hand over 4 bankers' boxes of evidence to the clerk. Case number 24 CV 00847. Martinez et al. V. Quelridge Recovery Solutions. Plaintiffs allege systematic violations of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Nora read from the filing, her voice carrying across the marble. Defendants knowingly pursued time-barred debts, used threatening language prohibited under federal statute, and maintained a pattern of deceptive practices affecting approximately 12,000 Colorado consumers. 12,000. The number hit different when spoken aloud. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks out. Judge Patricia Huang presiding, known for her consumer protection rulings. According to Nora's paralegal, who'd pulled 5 years of her decisions. Warren entered with his legal team like a presidential motorcade, 6 lawyers from Brennan, Cole and Associates, each one probably billing more per hour than I'd made in a week. He wore a charcoal suit that whispered money. But I caught the tell, his jaw clenching rhythmically. A stress response I'd seen during quarterly reports when numbers went south. Ms. Blake, he said, approaching during recess. His lawyers tried to intervene, but he waved them off. 30 seconds. Clock's ticking, I said. Come back. Senior Director of Compliance, 120 base, full benefits, signing bonus that covers your debts. You help us fix this from the inside. You want me to legitimize what you've been doing. I want this to go away. His mask slipped for just a second, fear underneath the arrogance. You've made your point. My point hasn't even started. The hearing was a bloodbath in slow motion. Judge Huang ordered Quelridge to produce call logs, training materials, and debt purchase agreements. Everything from the last 3 years, she specified, unredacted. Delia North stood to object, but Huang cut her off. Counselor, your client is accused of systematic fraud. Transparency is not optional. That night, my old colleague Marcus texted from a burner number. They're shredding documents. Saw the intern wheeling boxes to the industrial shredder. Thought you should know. I forwarded to Nora immediately. By morning, River and Stone had filed an emergency motion for evidence preservation. Federal marshals arrived at Quelridge by noon. The depositions started 2 weeks later. I sat across from Warren in a conference room that cost more per day than my old monthly salary. Court reporter between us. Video camera recording everything. State your name for the record. Warren Mitchell Kincaid. Mr. Kincaid, are you familiar with the script titled November Urgency Enhancers? His lawyer, Brennan himself, leaned forward. Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. I'll rephrase, Nora said smoothly. She pulled out the document. Exhibit 47A. Do you recognize this document? Warren's eyes flicked to the paper. His signature at the bottom. Authorizing implementation. I sign hundreds of documents. This one specifically, November 3rd, 2024. Your signature appears next to the word approved. Do you recall this? 4 hours of this. Every dodge met with documentation. Every I don't recall countered with emails where he'd explicitly discussed the strategies. The court reporter's fingers never stopped moving. Then Nora played her ace. Mr. Kincaid, do you recognize this audio? Warren's voice filled the room from the laptop speakers. These people signed contracts. We're optimizing cash flow recovery. Then my voice, younger, more desperate. We're threatening grandmothers about debts from 2015. Where did you get that? Brennan demanded. Ms. Blake routinely recorded meetings for her own note-taking purposes. Nora said calmly, Colorado is a one-party consent state, perfectly legal. The rest of the recording played. Warren's face went from red to white when his own voice said, You'll be back. That was taken out of context. Warren started. The context, Nora interrupted, was Ms. Blake refusing to implement illegal collection practices. Would you like to hear the full 43-minute recording? Brennan called for a break. In the hallway, Rosa Martinez sat with 17 other plaintiffs, all wearing their best clothes, all carrying folders of harassment documentation. One man, elderly, oxygen tank at his side, nodded at me. They called during my wife's funeral, he said quietly. The actual funeral. Said they'd put a lien on the house if I didn't pay immediately. When we reconvened, Brennan's approach had changed. My clients are willing to discuss settlement. $2 million to the class, he offered, divided among plaintiffs, plus attorney's fees. $40 million, Nora countered, plus agreement to cease all collection on time-barred debt, plus public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, plus 3 years of federal monitoring. That's insane. Nora pulled out her phone, showed something to Brennan. His face went pale. The Attorney General's Criminal Division would like a word if we can't resolve this civilly. Shall I return their call? The settlement negotiations went until midnight. I sat in the corner, watching Warren's empire crumble in real time, every hour. The number climbed, every hour. His lawyers looked more defeated. Final offer, $28 million to the class. Complete cessation of illegal practices, public apology, and federal monitoring. And something not in the official documents, Warren would step down as CEO within 60 days. We need your agreement, Nora told me privately. As the whistleblower, you're entitled to a separate settlement. They're offering $500,000 to waive any personal claims. $500,000, enough to clear every debt, start over, never worry about groceries again. I want the apology to name him specifically, I said. Warren Kincaid personally approved these practices, not leadership, not management, him. That's a deal breaker for them. Then we go to trial. The deposition room felt smaller the second time. Warren sat rigid in his chair, sweat beading at his temple despite the aggressive air conditioning. This was the make-or-break session, the one that would determine trial or settlement. Mr. Kincaid, Nora began, placing a manila folder on the table. I'm going to show you a series of documents. Please identify each one. First document. A memo from Warren to department heads. Q4 targets require aggressive collection tactics. Legal will provide cover. I don't recall writing this. Your email metadata says otherwise. October 15, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Sent from your personal laptop. Second document, Northbrook Portfolio LLC Incorporation Papers. Warren's signature as founding member, his brother-in-law listed as CEO. That's a separate entity, Warren said quickly. Nothing to do with Quellridge. Interesting. Nora pulled out bank records. Because Quellridge sold $40 million in debt to Northbrook at 10 cents on the dollar. Northbrook then collected at full value. The profits went... Where exactly? Brennan objected. But Judge Huang, observing the deposition, overruled. Third document. The recording transcript. Not just the conference room, but Warren's strategy session with senior management. Every word typed out, highlighted, annotated with corresponding legal violations. Page 17, Nora said. You state, quote, the debtors don't know the statute of limitations. Their ignorance is our profit margin. Can you explain what you meant? Warren's hands shook as he reached for water. The glass clicked against his teeth. I need a break, he said. We've been going 20 minutes, Nora replied. Answer the question. I meant, we operate within legal parameters. Then why did you tell managers to, quote, push until they break? Tears mean we're close to payment? I watched from my corner seat, remembering every meeting where he'd said worse. The Christmas party where he'd joked about funding his boat with late fees from single mothers. The quarterly review where he'd called defaulted debtors the gift that keeps on giving. Mr. Kincaid, Nora continued, are you familiar with the term zombie debt? It's industry slang. 4. Older obligations. Debts past the statute of limitations that cannot legally be collected through the courts, correct? If you say so. Nora pulled out the smoking gun, an email I'd found in my personal archives, one Warren had accidentally CC'd me on. Quote, the zombie debt portfolio is our gold mine. These idiots don't know we can't actually sue them. Fear is free money. Your words? The court reporter's fingers froze mid-stroke. Warren looked at Brennan, who was frantically flipping through documents. I need to confer with counsel. You can confer after you answer, Judge Huang said firmly. I may have used colorful language in private communications. Colorful language that describes deliberate fraud, Nora corrected. Mr. Kincaid, how much did Quelridge profit from collecting legally uncollectible debts last year? I don't have those numbers. I do. She pulled out a CFO report I'd saved religiously. 18.7 million. From debts you knew couldn't be enforced in court. The room felt airless. Warren's facade was cracking, his corporate polish peeling like old paint. Ms. Blake, Judge Huang addressed me directly. Do you have anything to add? I stood, my prepared statement in hand but unnecessary. The words came without reading. Your Honor, I watched Warren Kincaid destroy lives for sport. He had a leaderboard in his office ranking collectors by who could generate the most crisis calls, his term for making people panic enough to pay with rent money. He gave bonuses for collecting from people on disability. He once said, I paused, meeting Warren's eyes. He once said poor people were born to feed the machine. That's hearsay. Brennan objected. It's not hearsay if Mr. Kincaid confirms it. Judge Huang said, Mr. Kincaid. Warren said nothing. His silence was confirmation enough. I'm prepared to rule on the preliminary injunction, Judge Huang announced. Quelridge Recovery Solutions will immediately cease all collection activities pending trial. Asset freeze on all executive bonuses and distributions. Mr. Kincaid, your personal assets will be subject to potential recovery. Your Honor, Brennan stood. That's unprecedented. So is the scale of fraud alleged. Court is adjourned. As people filed out, Warren remained seated, staring at the table. His empire built on fear and lies was collapsing. His lawyers gathered around him like priests at a deathbed. Warren, I said, stopping at the door. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw him as he really was, not a corporate titan, but a small man who'd found power in others' misery. You were right about one thing, I said. I did come back, just not how you expected. Outside, Rosa Martinez was crying, hugging her daughter. The man with the oxygen tank shook my hand with both of his, trembling. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for fighting. Nora pulled me aside. They want to settle, the full amount, all conditions met. The apology naming Warren specifically. He's out as CEO effective immediately. How immediately? Security is packing his office as we speak. The whistleblower reward came through on a Tuesday morning. $1.8 million. A percentage of the fines CFPB levied against Quelridge. I stared at the Wells Fargo app until the numbers blurred. 7 digits where 3 used to be. First call, Sally Mae. I'd like to pay off my entire student loan balance. Would you like to set up a payment plan? No. The entire balance. Today. Silence. Then, let me transfer you to our payoff department. 47 minutes later, my Northwestern debt was gone. $67,849 to zero. I screenshot the confirmation 6 times. Next, Chase, Capital One. Discover. Each call shorter than the last. Each paid in full, like removing shrapnel from old wounds. Mom cried when I called. You don't have to. Already done. Check your mortgage account. Marin, no. Mom, let me do this. Please. I kept $200,000 for taxes, put $300,000 in index funds, boring, stable, the opposite of gambling. Set aside $50,000 for the legal aid fund Nora was establishing for debt victims. The rest sat in savings while I figured out what came next. That afternoon, Quelridge issued the public apology. Every major outlet carried it. Warren's name appeared 14 times. Each mentioned another nail in his professional coffin. Former CEO Warren Kincaid personally directed policies that violated federal law. The statement read, his leadership created a culture of predatory collection practices that harmed thousands of consumers. My phone buzzed. Warren's personal cell. Congratulations, he said, voice hollow. You won. This wasn't about winning. Sure it was. Everything's about winning or losing. That's why you're calling from your car instead of your corner office. Silence. Then. You cost me everything. No. Warren. You cost yourself everything. I just made sure there were consequences. I'm facing criminal charges. Did you know that? Wire fraud? Conspiracy? My lawyers say I could get 5 years. You destroyed people for profit. 5 years feels light. Those people made choices. Those people got cancer, lost jobs, buried children, and you squeezed them for money they didn't owe while calling it optimization. He laughed, bitter as burnt coffee. You think you're some hero? You think this changes anything? There are 50 companies doing exactly what we did. 49, I corrected. And falling? What? River and Stone filed 7 more suits this week. Using our case as precedent, your industry is eating itself. Warren, you just got to be first. Doors are still open. I could make some calls. You could consult, make real money. Warren, I cut him off. The answer is no. It will always be no. You'll be back, he said, reflexive as breathing. When the money runs out, when you get bored, you'll... I hung up. That evening, I opened my laptop to book flights. Peru first, Machu Picchu for Mom's bucket list that she'd never afford. Then New Zealand, Japan, Iceland, all the places I dreamed about during collections calls, when someone's suffering was just another metric to meet. My phone lit up with messages. Former colleagues who'd testified got their shares of the settlement. Rosa Martinez sent a photo of her grandkids at Disney World. First vacation in 10 years. Thank you. The man with the oxygen tank had paid for his wife's headstone, the one he couldn't afford when she passed. Ivy brought champagne, the good stuff, not the $7 bottles we'd survived on. So what now? She asked. What do you do after you've slayed the dragon? There are more dragons, I said, showing her my list. Payday lenders, medical debt buyers, student loan servicers. But first, I rest. First, I breathe. We sat on her balcony. Denver spreading out below us, lights beginning to flicker on as evening fell. Somewhere out there, Quelridge's offices were being packed up, employees updating resumes, Warren's nameplate already in the trash. Any regrets? Ivy asked. I thought about it. The stress, the surveillance, the months of rice and beans, the nights I'd almost given up, almost called Warren back, almost traded my principles for a paycheck. No, I said, meaning it. Not one. My phone buzzed, email from Warren. Offer stands, will always stand. I didn't delete it this time. Let it stand as a monument to his delusion. Let him wait forever for me to break, to bend, to come crawling back to the machine that ate people whole. Instead, I opened the American Airlines app and bought a one-way ticket to Lima. Window seat, first class, because I could now, because I'd earned it, because every dollar I spent was a dollar not made from suffering. The confirmation email came through immediately. Departure, 6:47 a.m., 3 days away. I'd finally found my answer to, you'll be back. It was a boarding pass pointing anywhere but here. The wheels of my carry-on clicked against the courthouse marble one last time. 3 days before Lima. But I had one final document to file. A victim impact statement for Warren's criminal sentencing. Not required, but necessary. Outside. Denver's morning air bit sharp and clean. The Uber driver had talk radio playing, something about corporate corruption, another CEO resigning in disgrace. I didn't tell him I was part of that story. At the airport, TSA pre-check felt surreal. No more choosing between gas and groceries. No more calculating whether I could afford the airport sandwich. I bought coffee without checking my balance first, the kind of freedom that shouldn't feel revolutionary, but did. Gate B37. My phone buzzed with last messages. Nora confirming the legal fund was operational. Mom sending photos of brochures for Peru tours. Ivy threatening to visit wherever I landed. Then, one final text from an unknown number. You'll be back? I knew that question mark. Warren, still hoping, still delusional, still thinking this was temporary. I typed, paid in full, then deleted his number, deleted the screenshots, deleted the entire folder labeled Quellridge Evidence. The courts had copies. The story was public record. I didn't need to carry it anymore. Boarding Group A. First class, window seat. 2A. The flight attendant offered champagne before takeoff. I declined, wanted to be clear-headed for this moment, to feel every second of leaving, of choosing, of being free. As we taxied, I opened my banking app one last time, every balance zero except checking and savings. No red numbers, no minimum payment warnings, no interest accruing while I slept. Just numbers that meant possibility instead of prison. The plane lifted off, and Denver fell away below. The courthouse. Quellridge's former offices, all of it shrinking to geography. Somewhere down there, Warren was meeting with his criminal defense team. Somewhere down there, 12,000 people were free from illegal harassment. Somewhere down there, the machine was breaking. My phone switched to airplane mode. The last notification, your flight to Lima is on time. I pulled out my journal, new, leather-bound, bought without guilt. On the first page, I wrote, Day 1, debt, $0. Direction, forward. The woman next to me glanced over. Starting something new. Ending something old, I said. She smiled, returned to her book. Outside the window, clouds obscured the ground completely. We were between worlds, no longer where we'd been. Not yet where we were going. The perfect place to exist for 6 hours and 47 minutes. I'd thought revenge would feel like victory. Instead, it felt like exhaling after holding your breath for years. It felt like setting down a weight you'd forgotten you were carrying. It felt like the first morning you wake up without checking your bank balance in panic. Warren was wrong. I wouldn't be back. Not because I was running from something, but because I was finally running toward something. Toward possibility. Toward a life where my worth wasn't measured in collection rates and human misery. The captain announced we'd reached cruising altitude, 37,000 feet above the machinery that had tried to grind me down. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 2 years, felt nothing but altitude and forward motion. Behind me, cleared debts, a conquered giant, and a boss who'd learned that "you'll be back" were 3 words that could become a prophecy he'd never wanted. Ahead, Peru, then everywhere else, then whatever came after that. I opened my eyes, looked at the blank journal page, and wrote one more line. Warren was wrong. I'm never going back. The plane flew on, carrying me toward whatever came next, below. America and all its collections agencies continued their work, but I was done being part of that machine, done being threatened by it, done letting it define my worth. My story with Quellridge ended at 37,000 feet, somewhere over Kansas, with 7 figures in the bank and 0 obligations to anyone but myself. Paid in full. Every debt, every doubt, every desperate dream of escape. Paid in full and flying toward the sun. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts. Your own experiences and perspectives make these stories come alive. Until next time, keep fighting your battles and never let them tell you you'll be back.